We have a new dog, Smokey. Hi, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about why autistic people have difficulty with conversation. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. As many of you know, I work full-time, so I'm around people a lot. We're going to define what conversation is. We're going to talk about scripting and speech and mannerisms and the double empathy gap. So let's get right into it. First of all, let's define what is conversation. How do I view it as an autistic person? Well, my definition of conversation is the purpose of conversation is to give needed information to another person for understanding or for a needed outcome or clarification. Other than that, it's connecting with others. As an autistic person, I pretty much see conversation as having a purpose. That's the main thing behind it. If I'm at work and there's upcoming activities that need to be done, I need to talk to my coworkers about who's going to do what activity. My conversation with them has a very specific purpose, and nothing beyond that has to be said. If we choose to sit silently, that's okay too. I don't need to talk about anything else in the moment, but people who aren't autistic see conversations a lot differently. They need it to connect also, as well as give information. I see coworkers constantly go and just chit-chat with other employees who are their friends, and they just talk about what's going on in their lives, what they're feeling, maybe a little gossip, things like that. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. My brain is just wired differently. I am trying to use conversation to connect sometimes, but most of the time my brain is just naturally focused on what needs to be done for the day. And my whole need for being at my job, it gives me a purpose of serving my residents. And I think that's what baffles neurotypical people, is that we just don't have the desire to really socialize. They can't understand that. It's so alien to them. Such a concept. Many times, as someone on the spectrum, we go by scripts when we are anticipating a conversation. It's not unusual for autistic people to script their conversations. I do this a lot. I'm probably going to mention the weather, or I'm going to ask you how you're doing, or tell you I like something you're wearing, or I may choose to just say nothing at all except hi. Sometimes autistic people may borrow phrases from TV, from shows, movies. Have you ever found yourself repeating a movie line because it's the right moment to do it and it's the perfect timing? I think as autistic people in general, I would say most of us love movies and we're very influenced by movies. And we probably love to watch the mannerisms and facial expressions of actors in movies. I'm really not good at coming up what to say on the fly. I have to think about what I'm going to say, and as much as I want to give a witty response in the moment, the most cool response I can think of only comes after the conversation's over and everybody's walked away. I have slower processing speeds in conversations, and it really depends on what other stimuli in the environment is going on. If I can just soak in what you're saying and understand it, it doesn't mean I'm not smart. It just means it takes longer for my brain to process and make a response. Next, we're going to talk about speech and mannerisms. Autistic people often speak in a different rhythm or speed or volume even than neurotypical people. Sometimes we can sound flat. We can talk loud, soft, or other ways that neurotypicals think can make us appear stiff. Naturally, my speaking is very flat. I have a lot of facial intonation, as according to my psychologist that tested me for autism, but naturally I'm very stiff in movement, stiff in mannerisms, lacking of gestures. I've often found myself mimicking other people that I like, and you know what they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, if I really like your mannerisms, I may copy you. I worked with a coworker for a while, and she had a different tone of voice and a way of speaking, and I found even after she left the job, I was mimicking and copying her tone of voice in front of residents. I would realize I was doing that. I've stopped doing that since, but it just was happening naturally because I really liked the way she spoke. How hard is it to understand what someone is really telling us if we're not good at understanding facial expressions or emotions in others? We're going to talk about next understanding others' sarcasm. A lot of autistic people have difficulty separating sarcasm and humor from statements or facts. Abstract ideas can be tricky for us to understand. You may be the last person to get a joke. You ever find that happens to you? And really, text messages can be even more confusing. Anyone ever sent you a text and you really didn't know how they were trying to say it because there was just no emoji there? I think as an autistic person, I do like emojis a lot. I think the person that created emojis must have been autistic, but I'm just saying. I want to talk about, if I'm going to talk about trouble with conversations in autistic people, I want to talk about the double empathy gap. The basis of this theory is that a mismatch between two people can lead to faulty communication. Happens all the time. This disconnect can occur on a lot of levels, really. So sometimes neurotypicals have trouble understanding what we are saying because we communicate differently. For example, they may wonder why you're smiling when they're talking about their sick grandmother. That's happened to me before. I really didn't mean to do it. I was just caught up in thinking of what facial expressions I needed to be making while they were talking, and then they went into a serious subject and I needed to realize I needed to stop my smile. I had to quickly wipe that smile off my face. Non-autistic people might be prone to having negative first impressions of autistic people. They may know something is different about you right away, but they can't put their finger on what it is. Sometimes autistic people just connect better with other autistic people. So when you are friends with someone who is autistic as well, you find that not necessarily having to follow the rules of a friendship or relationship. One of these reasons is because autistic people are less concerned about social norms. So one of the main diagnostic criteria for autism, as outlined in the DSM-5, is persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts. We just have less of a drive for social interaction. We can just be okay by ourselves and really appreciate being by ourselves. Sometimes it's just really all I want is a day to myself. So in my opinion, autistic people don't need to change themselves. Neurotypical people need to better understand and accept and appreciate us as we are. So the article that I found on this information will be linked down in the description below in case you want to check it out. It talked about how double empathy problem underscores the importance of training programs. Doctors, police officers, medical professionals, medical services, they all need to be trained how to communicate with autistic people and how our communication styles are. Anyone that has to help an autistic person should be trained to appropriately interact with us. For example, if I go into a stressful situation or something my mind considers jarring, I can go kind of mute. I'm not going to say kind of mute, I'm going to say mute. When there's an emergency, I may not be able to speak in the moment. That's happened to me a couple times. I didn't know I was autistic at the time. I didn't understand my actions, but it happened to me in the workplace. People didn't understand my reaction, and I didn't understand my reaction, but I do now. So I think it's important for medical professionals to understand. When we are autistic, we may respond differently to situations. So it's my hope that with us making content on YouTube about autism, hopefully medical professionals will see there's a need to study and understand how our brains work, what we're going through, and how to better fit our needs in society, because we are a part of society and we're not going anywhere. So they need to figure out how to integrate us as well into society so we can live the best life that we can. So thank you for watching this video, and as always, go down there and comment on what you struggle with when it comes to communicating. What are the biggest issues for you? And would love to hear from you. And go ahead and subscribe to this channel if you haven't, and be a part of this community of adults living with autism. I'd say I put out pretty regular material. So have a beautiful day, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.